Little better, maybe.
Oh shit! I'm just a little bit ahead of Jesse. I think. Oops.
You're way out front as usual, brother.
Yeah. Leading the charge. Sometimes getting an error with the chest. All right, we must be live now.
We're live. We're good.
Okay. So
Okie.
And welcome to H3. Glad you're here joining us. I'm the acapellist, and with me is Brother Scott. How you doing? Brother Scott?
Good. I think it's really good that we're a little confused because tonight's show is on dementia and memory loss. So
exactly. You might think
we're not quite sure.
These guys they can't pay attention here. But maybe we have. That could be too, right, Scott?
Yeah. Well, and we're laughing, but I mean, it's nothing to laugh about. It certainly affected my family and my loved ones, and it's a part of it, everyday life, right? And I don't know anyone who hasn't had a good friend or a family member that suffered from one form of dementia or Alzheimer's or.
Yes, I agree. I don't know if you ever met my father-in-law, John Grohl's father. He was a hard working man, but really quiet. He wouldn't talk very much about stuff. He opened up to me about things that I'm sure he never told anybody else about. When he was in a work camp, his experiences he had there. But he had dementia for 10 years. He was in institution for 10 years. He would have never wanted that. He was the family. We did the thing to protect him from getting eaten by a bear when he was fishing.
Yeah.
But we should let him get eaten by a bear when he was fishing. He would have been much happier.
It's a hard call because quality of life is something that's, I think, as I get older and I've gone through some pretty serious health stuff, but quality of life is very subjective, right? It's something that it changes. And, I know that for me, one of the things I really am scared of is losing my cognitive ability, my ability to make decisions, my ability to, I don't mind if I get crazy. Fleur had her grandfather, he suffered, and I shouldn't say crazy, but he suffered from dementia. My family's German. He spoke German all the time. He was, they're white Russians or Germans. And I reminded him of somebody from his childhood. And whenever he saw me, he got so happy and he'd slap me in the back and talk to me in German. He would ignore everyone else. He would laugh, talk, and we had a great old time. And I smiled and laughed back. I don't speak German. He was happy. That's all I cared about, right? And the younger him probably would have been really embarrassed and probably really upset about that. But he was happy. Like, it's a hard call, right? And I wonder when I get there, because it's something, maybe we'll back up a little bit. Let's talk about what dementia is. And a lot of people, and you know this from your business, but it's a difficult thing because dementia is not a specific disease, right? And it's a general term that when people have an impaired ability to think, impaired cognitive abilities, abilities to make decisions, to remember everyday things, or it can be very severe, right? People's emotions can change. People become extremely aggressive. I know that that's a problem for healthcare providers that work in homes that specialize in dementia. Is some people get very aggressive and very angry, and some people get very sad and they're very emotional. So, what's your experience with the term dementia? How would you classify it?
Well, I've had Fortunately, I had a lot of experience with. Scott, I got a little echo. Can you? Did you change the settings that I'm?
No, I don't think so. I changed.
Okay. Remember when we messed before?
So
it should have been
turning up my mic. Let me see here.
Yeah, okay. Turn that down a little bit. Yeah. Okay, that's better. Okay. I was getting quite a bit.
Oh, you just got really loud to me. Oh. How's that?
Okay, how's that?
Now you're quiet.
All right. I don't have a lot of experience with dementia, fortunately for me. But the one that I do most significantly is Nicola's father. And that was just an horrendous experience. You know, he went in, he had memory issues. Yeah, no question. And he was making himself lots of notes to try and keep himself functional and that kind of thing. He recognized that he had memory problems. And but when it was felt for his safety to put him in the home, then he was very strong and he was in a confused environment. It reminded him of confinement times, I think, right? And he felt very unsafe there. And then because he was unsafe, he felt aggressive. He was like he was not in a welcoming, friendly space because he wasn't there. Like I wonder how much if you had a loved one that had lost it and you weren't frustrated about it, you weren't upset about it, you were going to go and see that person and tell the same joke to them every time. And they'd laugh. They have this new joke to them, right? What if you just went with the intention that, okay, we're just going to have fun and make these people laugh? And, you know, I wonder how much less medication would get pumped into people so that they become compliant. Because that's what happened.
Yeah, and I have a personal story about that. And I've actually been strapped down. When I was coming out of coma, you don't come immediately out of those drugs. They're still in your system. So there was a period where I was between whatever world I was living in when I was in coma and the real world. And of course, in Japan, I was quite big for them. And so they strapped me down the whole time as I was coming through. So I was restrained. And when I was in that between place, of course, I was, they were trying to kill me and all of these things. And when I was awake, I was rational. And I'm like, I'm fine. Take these off. Like, I don't want to be tied down. No one, if you've ever been restrained forcefully, it's not a fun feeling.
Yeah.
And, but my grandmother, she was one of 12 children. 6 were born in the US, in Vermont, 6 were born here in Canada. And she had a younger sister. Younger sister. And her sister developed dementia in her 20s, early 20s.
Wow.
And she had it her whole life. She lived into her 80s. And she was in an institution basically from 25 on, because she would wake up in the morning and have no idea who she was or who other people were. She could remember to play. She was a brilliant pianist, and she could still play the piano until the day she died. Play from memory, sort of one of those weird trick kind of things. And my grandmother would go visit her, and every morning she would have to explain who she was. I'm your sister, Muriel. I'm, Ruth. And she would listen, and it would take her about half a day to accept the situation. And she would, Grandma would have to explain who Muriel was. Your name's Muriel, and you're in a hospital, and you have some trouble remembering, and but she didn't say, I was here yesterday and we went through all this, and so she had to go through this whole half day of sort of convincing Aunt Muriel who she was and who my grandmother was, and that they were sisters. And then once that was accepted, they spent the rest of the day having fun. And exactly as you said, that's all Grandma's goal was, to go up and play the piano with Muriel, have tea with Muriel, do whatever Muriel wanted to do. That's what Grandma went for. Muriel was quite happy. Once my grandmother and other people accepted, there was going to be a half day of, who are you again? Who am I again?
And not to be frustrated, not to be
scared.
It just this is how it is. This is our process.
And we talked to the nurses there, and the nurses were really good, but they don't have a half a day to explain all of that. Right? They've got to get medication into a whole bunch of people. They have to, bath, groom, all of these things, and that causes frustration. Exactly what you said. There wasn't a nurse that could sit there with Aunt Muriel and explain, your name's Muriel Craig, and you're in a hospital, and you have an illness that impairs your memory, and you're safe, and your family's close by, and they can come if there's an emergency. But of course, the doctors don't have time to do all that for every patient in ward.
You know what just came to me, because I'm thinking now, not then, was why wouldn't in the afternoon when everybody's functioning at their best, and then you just record this? Hey, here's just a summary, Muriel, blah blah blah, and then the next day they watch that video together. Today we could do that like super easy, right? 50 years ago, was that no? You didn't have a recording equipment. You could find somebody, but it would. It's a big deal.
There's also a natural paranoia. I know that when I was coming out of that, whatever it was they used to put me under, I was paranoid. Like I was convinced there was for a while there that I was convinced my favorite nurse, the one who took care of me, wiped my bottom, put the tube in and out of my throat, did whatever, like he was a saint. But I was convinced in this other world that he was trying to kill me and that he had poisoned me. And so the doctors were all ready for this. And they gave me a saline shot. And, the doctor said, oh, this is the antidote. And, of course, crazy stuff, right? Like it sounds like a really bad movie. My point is that even if you showed them the video, I know Grandma, and I was never there in the morning. That was sort of a private thing. But there was always that doubt, right? Like Muriel was apprehensive, like, who are you? Like, okay, you seem nice, but because we've got self-preservation, right? So if some strangers in front of us say, oh, I'm your sister from way back, and you should do what I tell you to do, and here, you should eat this, and you should take this pill, and I think there's a natural resistance to that. So yeah, I don't know, I think it's a great idea. I don't know in practice. Certainly it'd be better than like 60 years ago. But how it affected my grandmother, this is sort of what I was getting, is that my grandmother had a great memory, but she was paranoid her whole life that whatever happened to Muriel was going to happen to her, because Muriel was fine. Aunt Muriel, I'm sorry, I'm just great aunt. Anyway, my grandmother was convinced that what had ever happened to her sister was suddenly going to happen to her, and she wrote everything down. She kept diaries and wrote notes obsessively because she was so worried that some morning she was going to wake up and she was going to be like her sister, and she wouldn't know who she was or where she was. She wouldn't remember her husband. She wouldn't remember her kids. And that scared her. And she lived her whole life with that fear. It never happened. My grandmother died of a heart attack, but it wore on her. Like you could see, like she loved Muriel and she loves going to see her. And yeah, it was stressful at times, but it caused that fear in her, right? That lowered her quality of life too, which I think that, if you've ever had a caregiver, like I know for me, I still require assistance to do some things. It wears on those people, right?
Yeah.
And what did you call it? You explained it one day. What's it called?
Caregiver fatigue, I think.
Yeah, or something deficit or burnout, compassion.
Oh yeah. There's another phrase.
Yeah. So I think that people with dementia, especially if it occurs when they're young and there might not be other medical issues, it can be really hard on everyone around them. So it's something that affects a whole family unit often, not just the person that's suffering from the condition.
Can I share something about music and dementia?
Absolutely. That's on the list. So please.
You know what? We should even just Google it. It's amazing. Can we do that? Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I have data on that. It's in part of my research.
But, is it? Well, do you want to just click on the link and share it?
No, go ahead, man. Seriously.
Okay. So I'm just going to Google black man with dementia music. And it is an incredible video. This guy's about 85. Oh, here it is, right here. He's got Alzheimer's. And then he goes and
my mother affectionately calls it old timers.
Present. Hang on a second. I gotta share screen. Come on. I'm sharing it. I don't see it playing though. Oh, here it's coming.
Is there sound you can turn on there, Al?
Oh, shit. What? Hang on. I bet you when I shared it. Oh, no, here it is.
Yeah.
Okay. See it, Scott?
Yep. And hear it. Good job.
Yeah.
On your music. What's your music now? Let's try your music. You tell me if it's too loud.
And immediately he lights up. His face assumes expression.
When I introduce the music to you, this is his reaction every sense.
Give me the
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Wonderful stuff. So, music is one of the really great ways to help people.
Wait a minute. Oh, there it is. Okay, stop there. All right, I think I got a spot. Sister Google kept on playing there.
Okay, good. So
Okay.
I just want to go over some of the early signs of dementia. And again, lots of things can cause this. But this is, I know we got a phone call and from my mother's doctor, and he said, yeah, Virginia's having a little trouble remembering sometimes. And I don't think that we're in a like ground zero kind of event going on here. He said, but we're starting to see a little bit of signs that maybe there's some issues there. I talked to her that day and since, and everything seems quite normal. In fact, her and I had a great conversation. She asked me about my job, and she's always a little bit confused about what I do, always has been. My brother's in agriculture, so she understands that because she was a farmer. I, on the other hand, deal with computers, so she's... But we had a great conversation. Yeah,
you're a man of mystery.
Yeah, I am a man of mystery. But changes in mood and personality, especially intense or quick changes, right? So I know my grandfather, and his were caused by little strokes, but it was also associated with dementia. And he's a really gentle guy, big guy, but really gentle. And 4 or 5 times he suddenly flew into a rage with my mom, which he never... When my mom was growing up, she was a princess. He never raised his voice to her, definitely didn't spank her or anything. My grandmother was a disciplinarian, but my grandfather never. His little daughter, nope. And that was one of the signs, it really startled my mom, but that was sort of the beginning of what, eventually he had a massive stroke and that was it. But so rapid changes in personality can be something, or easily triggered from everyday situations. If you notice a loved one or somebody that you're around all the time is suddenly acting or suddenly flies off the handle. Memory loss disrupting a daily routine, and that's an important point. We all have memory loss. I know some of the medication I take for sleep causes short-term memory loss for me, and if I've taken it, I may forget what happened that night, like just before I went to bed, once the pills kick in. Talked to my doctor about it. He said it's just one of those things. He said there's lots of drugs that can cause memory loss. So memory loss by itself isn't necessarily a sign of dementia. That's what I'm trying to say. But if it interferes with daily routines, like you can't remember how to button your shirt, right? Or you can't remember if you wear a tie all the time. If I suddenly forgot how to tie a tie, that would indicate that there's something, because I love wearing ties and I can tie them in my sleep, right? So memory loss is affecting daily routine. Decrease in judgment. And a lot of people start seeing this one, especially children, right? Like the girls, even though they're adults, they still expect me to be able to give them an answer, a judgment really quickly. So if they came to me for advice or they asked me a question and I, stuttered and didn't really present an answer, that would be a good indication for them that something was going on. Misplacing things that they usually do not, and this is important. Fleur loses her keys 15 times a day. She has since I met her and probably will forever. So Fleur losing her keys is not a sign of dementia, but misplacing things that you usually do not. So like a cell phone, if you're one of those people that your cell phone is always within reach, you know where it is every time, and suddenly you start losing it, then that could be a concern. Yeah. So the little caveats on the end of these are really what you have to watch for, right?
Got it.
Having a hard time talking and or writing. So often people with dementia will, it's like Fleur's grandfather. German, he was perfectly fluent in again, his childhood language. English, he lost a lot of his ability to communicate effectively in English. Because of dementia. German, no problem. So, social isolation. A lot of people, when they start to suffer from dementia, are aware of it, and they retreat because they don't want other people to notice that there's something wrong. Right? We've seen that with a lot of conditions cause people to retreat. Right? And unfortunately, that's one of the worst things you can do. Right? We know that from all the discussions we've had. Staying in communion with each other, staying connected is a cure to everything. So,
Amen, brother Scott.
We both believe firmly in that one. Increased difficulty solving problems. If it was math, it wouldn't indicate anything for me because I've never been good at math. But if you're usually good at some kind of problem solving and you suddenly are not, that can be an indication. Again, difficult with day-to-day tasks, things like cooking, driving, shopping, the things that somebody's done their whole life and they suddenly have difficulty with those things. This is an interesting one, and they're not exactly sure why. Difficulty with spatial relationships. I'm always drinking a cup of coffee and I don't have to look, and I put it right on the table. But if I was setting down my cup of coffee and it was going off the edge of the table, that would indicate that I'm having trouble judging that distance, right? So that's something to keep an eye for. Losing track of time and place. That's one of the classic ones. Do you know where you are? Do you know what time it is? Are the questions we always ask for, an injury to our brains and those things. So those are the 10 early signs of dementia. People should be watching for those things. And that's a pretty good list of things. Have you noticed any of those things, Al?
Well, maybe just tonight.
You were supposed to answer, I can't remember.
That'd have been the right.
I set you up, brother.
Oh, that would have been an obvious one. Mine, I wasn't paying attention. I was thinking of the last one. About where that you're aware of what time it is and what day it is and that kind of thing. Because I was upstairs and we were making supper, and I started beating on that drum. I've got this djembe from Brother Daniel, so I've been really enjoying beating on that. And Corolla said, "Oh, it's too noisy. I can't handle it." So I said, "I'll take it outside." So I went and laid in the grass on my back.
Oh, nice.
Had the djembe between my legs and pounded here. The sun, just a beautiful sun, blue sky, like one cloud over here. I was watching this hawk fly by. Oh man! And the hawk was in kind of like a Superman pose kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And then he did the wings back thing, and he just looked like an arrow, right? Yeah. And he must have been in some kind of jet stream, and just like I bet you went 100 kilometers an hour, just gone. It was amazing. Anyways, so I kind of lost track of time when I was doing the djembe and enjoyed all the grass and sun, and I might have lost it. Corolla came up and said, "What day and time is it?" Give me a minute. I don't count to me.
Yeah, I think that at times in your life it matters less, right? Like people often on holiday say, you know, what day is it? I forget what day it is.
Yeah.
Because when you're at work, you have to remember those things, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that last one is one of the things that maybe sometimes we all have. A lot of my research came up with people trying to avoid dementia and Alzheimer's and memory issues. And there's been a lot of research into that on what can be done. And it's really, really interesting. I know you and I both do some of these things.
For our viewers, I want to point out that Scott A. Sweetman has not been in this shirt for 14 years.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
He is trimmed up. And now he can hit this shirt, this clothing from 14 years ago. Not many people can make a claim like that.
Yeah. And
most people get heavier and heavier. You're going another way.
Yeah. And hats off to my doctors. Those ladies are, without them, I'd probably be planted by now. Really. Yeah. And Claire Forrestal and, my doctor now, Dr. Collins. Without those guys, boy, if you don't have a good relationship with your doctor, get a new one. They should be like your priest. Those, you should be always telling them the truth. Don't feed them a line. Doesn't matter if it's embarrassing. They've heard it all before. If you don't trust them, because I know that, boy, they've saved. Yes, I've had some terrible doctors that have set me back a lot, both physically and psychologically. But I wouldn't be on this planet if it wasn't for some amazing people. So
beautiful. That's awesome.
So we talked about signs of dementia, and then I want to talk about some of the things that we can do to help our brain stay healthy. And you and I are sort of really interested in this backward aging concept because you and I know somebody who seems to be going backwards on the age scale, and hopefully we'll have more to talk about that, right? But these are things, the Alzheimer's Society, and who put this one? Yeah, this is from the Alzheimer's Society. And these are just quick things that you can do right now. Doesn't matter what your age is. You don't have to suspect.
Let's hear it.
Getting them. Pursue lifelong learning. There's a great story in this article about a man named Ron, and he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2015. And on his bucket list were continuing education. He really wanted to get a degree in political science. And when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2015, he thought, that's it. I'm never going to attain that, right? But he hung in there, and, instead of treating it like proof that he was losing abilities, he treated it like a challenge. So every day when he went into class, he would take notes and he would study, and it was difficult, but he treated it like a challenge. Class discussions, the assignments, all of these things that Ron and his doctors felt that, were going to be very difficult, perhaps impossible for him to do. He found himself improving. And by challenging himself and struggling through that, he actually found that his long-term memory started to improve. And not only did it not degenerate as they had predicted in 2015, it actually improved. And Ron was able to graduate with a degree, majoring.
And so, did he focus on anything particular, or and he was learning something as all that matters?
Lifelong learning, that's the point. And,
Perfect.
Even when you have dementia, your brain can learn. And the whole sort of point in this is pursue lifelong learning. Don't stop learning, because if you do, you're losing one of the major tools for combating dementia, even if you're diagnosed with dementia or some form of dementia. So it's better to start before you have it. And I'll post a link to Rod's story because it's really cool.
Brother Scott, yep. I wish to take the microphone for a moment and share with you something that I learned at BNI. Yes. My friend who runs Catalyst, the agency Catalyst, shared this thing about pilots in jet aircraft. they're going to design the cockpits to make it work for the pilot, right? So they take 10 measurements and then create the average of these measurements. And then they build the cockpit around the pilot that meets that average template. So they start working the planes, and their people are not being able to function them at their optimal. They're not working the way they want to work, and the things are not being as smooth and as controlled as they should be. So they get feedback from the pilots. The pilots say, "Yeah, the cockpits aren't. This is in the wrong place, and I got to do that kind of a thing, right?" So they go back and they measure all of these pilots to say how many of these pilots meet the average number that we calculated on these 10 different factors. Zero. How many met 9 of them? Zero. How many met 8 of them? Zero. How many met 7 of them? Zero. How many met 6 of them? Zero. How many met 5 of them? Zero. How many met 4 of them? Four. So 4 of the ones like met kind of a thing, right?
Wow.
So of course the cockpits needed to be adjustable, needed to be configurable to make it work for that person. So it's just like average is not. There's no such thing, I guess, is my point.
No, and that's a great point. And with lifelong learning, that's where thinking about, the average student is this age. That's the wrong way to look at it. There's no average. Learning is not a bell curve that, when we're young, we can't learn, and then we meet some optimum at 18, 19 years old. And then, as you probably know, the modern education is really a product of the Industrial Revolution, where schools started to mimic factories, right? In the way that it's scheduled and churning out as many people as possible. Modern efficiency, right? Education used to be where you were sort of showed up and you talked to people and, watched things and did stuff. And there was sort of no stop and start time to it. And when you figured you'd learned enough, maybe you went away, and maybe in a year or two you came back, and maybe you taught for a while or you mentored for a while. And that was for centuries what education was, and it's only in very modern times
and more so even centuries in like the community, like golf garden for us. It'd be like golf garden. People would wander around, start talking to each other, and somebody would get up and start telling the story like I just did, or whatever, singing a song or making a poem or whatever, right?
Well, and it used to be that pretty much, unless you were a slave, and even slaves, depending on where you look back in history, had a certain amount of education available to them. In movies tell us that they were just abused. But
hey, I'm reading a book right now.
Societies, sorry.
I'll just interject. I'm reading a book called The Gift of Black Folk by Dubois, and it's real interesting. And there's a lot of people, a lot of blacks that some are slaves. Some have bought their freedom and have very little resources, and others were very, very wealthy and influential, right? It's like they're all over the place, right? At the same time, where these people were okay to be owned because of the color of their skin, well, these other people were obviously of similar or better intellect and decision-making abilities, and certainly height of their human powers, if you will, right?
And I really think that we see that going on. We're living longer. Never in human history have we ever lived as long as we do now, in as good a health as we enjoy now. And I think a lot of our parameters need to be readjusted. And certainly lifelong learning is one of those things that, and it's not new, really. I mean, it's been, I know when the big phase was mid-career development, where people would take a year or two off and go back to university or something. That was popular in the 80s and early 90s, and then short courses were popular and things. So yeah, but like Ron, and this is a Canadian publication, the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. They have a lot of great stories for people that have used lifelong learning to get through things. Cross-train your brain. That's number 2. You like
cross-train your brain.
Yeah. And what they mean by that is don't just focus on one kind of learning. And they have a great story about Phyllis, and she took up archery. and archery was really good after she was diagnosed with early onset dementia, because the hand-eye coordination was, she found, incredibly helpful for her to turn on that focus. So when she was having some problems, when her condition was interfering with her life, she had learned through archery how to force herself to focus. It's like shooting sports for us. In that moment, you are completely focused on, that breath and that press of the trigger, and they call it cross training your brain, but it could be anything. It could be music, it could be archery, shooting, really anything.
It sounds like it's inclusive enough to say anything that you were in kind of a flow state. That you could say you were very clearly in that present moment.
That's a great way to describe it. I like that term, flow state. The next one they have is play games. And somehow in our society, we got the idea that only kids should play games. And there's a wonderful video, and the man is either Finnish or Danish, and he's done a lot of research into play. And every day he goes out, he's like 80 something, and he's built an obstacle course in his yard. And it's like, a healthy young man would find it challenging. And this guy's in his 70s or 80s. And he goes out there and he skips around on one foot and jumps back and forth. And his whole point is, because he has made play a priority, that his body has remained young and nimble, allowing him to do these things. His spatial recognition, his calculation of speed, and all of those things. And like you said, he wasn't an athlete when he was younger, but he's incorporated play into his daily life. And so the Alzheimer's Society is saying, play them games. What do you think, Al?
I agree 100%. Yeah. And the gent who was doing the obstacle course today, Dr. Yanni Witten had a program, a free program he had. It was an hour and a half or so, in which at the end he told you about his pain-free protocol. He's a very smart man. He's got amazing solutions. I've used many of his. And today he was talking about that medication, people with pain, the traditional way where they get medications, it is like zero effective in terms of pain control. So then why are you doing it, right? That's the question. But his big thing is flow, and the flow is movement. And the flow is movement that releases synovial fluid, that acts as a lubricating agent, which take away the pain. And the movement by itself is an action that basically alleviates the pain. So it's almost like, unless there's something broken, move is kind of the solution.
Well, and I think that, again, we're learning more about that. Immobilization has always been a popular thing for people that were suffering, right? And we found now that, I know that when I was in the hospital when I was 13, bleeding internally, they couldn't figure it out. They wanted me to lay in bed and don't move. We don't know why you're bleeding, so we want you to stay still and calm. And I was a 13-year-old boy that was physically active, played sports my whole life, grew up on an active ranch. I couldn't sit for 10 minutes. And finally, the doctor's like, just leave him alone. I mean, it's not hurting him. It's, if nothing else, it makes it easier to have him in here. So let him,
do his thing.
Yeah. And we're getting better at that, I think, in letting people do it.
Nice.
So those are the the main things. Challenge your brain, lifelong learning, cross-train your brain, look for opportunities. A lot of people say languages, and learning new languages is really good. But if that's not your thing, learn cooking. Anything that challenges you to do new things, right? And games. There's so many games available now. Word games, action games. So many opportunities to learn, and they reward you with better skills and opportunities to fight off that dementia condition. And they're fun, right?
Yeah. Cool.
Do you play a game at all, Al? Do you have a game that you play?
No.
Game called life. Yeah. That's not true. You do the shooting sports. You were just
Well,
telling
yes,
me.
well, yes.
Yeah, that's a game, right? We
Okay,
call it
fair
a game.
enough. That's a game. That's a game.
You, I don't think you play as much as you should. I think if you added play to all the other things you're doing, you'd be like a teenager again.
Well, do you think that singing is playing?
Oh, yeah, I think it is. Sure.
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, I'm playing rock star or something. I'm playing whatever.
Well, no, I think that you're engaged in an activity that is intellectually stimulating, physically stimulating, and doesn't pay your bills or, give you immediate. It just makes you feel good, so you do it, right? That's sort of the definition of play, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's at its core, play is moving, expressing with joy.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think it is.
Yeah.
Is that good?
I like it. Moving and expressing with joy. Works for
I
me.
love it. I'm going to start my singing show now. Moving, expressing with joy.
Well, let me I've got a really nice list of 30 activities that are really good for you to do with somebody that is either possibly coming down with a dementia condition or maybe they already have it.
Wait a minute. Are we going to do the whole list tonight?
I'm going to go really quick because I also want to end with a really positive thing on how to support a loved one with dementia. So
you go.
Look through old pictures. That's a favorite one. A really cool thing now. Have you seen a digital picture frame?
Yeah, where they change the images. It just keeps, yeah.
And you can send it. Yeah, so the girls send me pictures all the time, and it goes to my picture frame. And so it's like, oh, that's a new picture. And you can add people's names and text to it. Great idea. And they're not expensive. Well, they're $50, $60 now. So depending.
We're not talking about something that's part of your computer. It's a separate device kind of thing, right?
Looks like a picture frame.
Yeah.
It plugs into the wall and your Wi-Fi. And you can either have a lot of control over it, or you can set it up for somebody else and control it remotely. We're getting one for my mom this summer, and we're just going to put family pictures and stuff in it, and a good reminder, right? So But they say scrapbooking, old photos, even if you can get them photocopied, and even if they wear them out, it's all good. Engaging people is important. Not the only caveat here with pictures is don't just do it with old things. Part of the problem with dementia is people retreat from the present because often it's short-term memory loss. So it's easier to remember when they were younger than it is to remember what they did an hour ago, right? So one of the cautions here is try to keep things engaged in the present as well, not just down memory lane, but also
right.
Listen to music. That's number 2, and that was a great little video you showed us. There's all kinds of proof. Alzheimer's Association notes with no hesitation or reservation that listening to music can reduce agitation, improve behavioral issues, and allow self-expression and engagement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that people dance, people move, people, like the older fellow, he was expressionless and, basically sort of like a zombie. Listen to the music and he's humming and making noise and moving. Yeah, music, do it. Never lose the music, man. Never lose the music.
Nice.
Arts and crafts, another big one. Sometimes it's a little bit overdone. Somebody who, often in an institution or at a home, they do arts and crafts over and over and over again, and they're looking for something new. So don't try and, do something new and interesting. We used to take the kids from our schools in Japan and visit the seniors lodge, which was just around the corner. The seniors didn't speak English. The kids, very few of them spoke Japanese, and they had a great time. They loved it. They laughed and played, and the kids took stuff to show them, and the language was love, and the kids just loved, they were from other countries. They weren't around their grandma or grandpas, their aunts or uncles. And here they had these wonderful senior citizens who just wanted to spend time with them. And the Japanese seniors were just happy that all these foreign little kids wanted to be around them. It was just beautiful.
Wonderful. Beautiful. Nice.
Cuddle a pet. That's a big one. Lethbridge Victim Services have What's the new dog's name? I forget now the new dog's name. Anyway, cuddling a pet, a lot of research done 2020. Spending time with an animal, even a robotic animal, help people with dementia or even just suffering from depression. Big reduction in depression and emotional well-being from cuddling a pet, even a robot pet. So that's important. When did you start beating your drum, Al? How long have you had that?
I don't know, probably like about 4 months.
Yeah. Number 6, making music. Your voice, banging on a drum, shaking tambourines, anything that where you're creating stimulus yourself improves cognitive function. Proven
Cool.
research. Yeah. So not just passively listening, like yelling, screaming, banging on stuff, shaking stuff, impacting your environment stimulates our brain. So that's a good one, right?
The vibration from either the drum if you're holding it, or from your voice when you're singing, like the vibration you feel in your chest, like it's beautiful. It's very nice.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear it, but my neighbor is mowing their lawn and they're using what would be like a tractor. You need to could do like 40 acres to
okay.
6x6 piece. So my whole house is vibrating and I'm not really enjoying that sensation. So
I can't hear it very.
Oh, well, you're lucky. They seem to be happy, so that's good. Number 7, this one I don't know about, but doing household chores, again, impacting your environment, right? Not being passive. And that's one of the things that they really, when you look through the Alzheimer's Society, is they want homes and caregivers to try and encourage people to affect their environment, not just be passive and absorb their environment, because our brains kind of turn off. But when you're making things happen, it's proven that your brain reacts to that in a very positive way. So cleaning up the house, involve people, and even if they need help, is really good for their cognitive ability.
Cool.
TV shows, and they're not talking about plopping down, somebody in front of a TV and leaving them there for 8 hours, but very specific TV shows, or ones that, if the person really loved cars, maybe a show on race cars, and sit there with them and ask them questions that they might be able to answer. If they can't answer, just carry on. Don't make a big deal about it.
Yeah.
Use it in a more interactive way. Whole category of outdoor activities. Often we're scared to take people that are having dementia episodes or conditions outside because it's more dangerous, right? Like you were saying, protecting your father-in-law from getting eaten by a bear.
Yeah.
Lots of times these people don't get outside enough, and that's a big deal. Gardening, therapeutic gardening has proven to improve not only dementia but mental health. Period. People who grow things are happier, feel better. Yeah.
I'm being mushroom grower soon. I'm figuring it out.
That's what I was just going to ask you. I can't wait for the first crop. I love mushrooms. So yeah, get out there, do some gardening, even a window garden, anything. Just grow something, right?
Right on.
Walk in the park, just going for a little walk, improves physical fitness, improves social connections. I love going for a walk and running into people that say hello. Maybe you stop and say, "Oh, how are you today? How's the weather?" Don't be afraid of having a little mini conversation. Play catch. A simple little thing like tossing a ball back and forth.
Yeah.
Because it's a very kind of an intimate thing. If it's 2 people, you're paying attention to the other person, you're interacting with them. Again, don't make a big deal if they miss every time. Laugh, pick it up, roll around on the ground a little bit, have fun with it.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Yeah, social connection. So any of these kind of outdoor activities that have a social connection to them are really positive. Feeding the birds. That's like petting. That's sort of a cliche, right? Old man on the bench feeding the birds. Research 2016 said that feeding them birds help with stress reduction, improve mental health, a connection to nature and the environment, and reduced anxiety. Big pluses for reduced anxiety. Pretty cool, eh?
It is cool.
Physical exercise. Again, this is something that, you were talking about how, what was that doctor again? The one,
Dr. Yanni Witten.
right.
Yeah. He's a genius.
The Alzheimer's Association would agree. Dancing to music, doing yoga, using a treadmill, lifting weights, all of these things, cognitive function, working memory, flexible thinking, and self-control all improve through those things. Pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, they are. It's got. Have you ever used one of them standing vibrator type thing machines? Do you stand on them?
In Japan, they're popular. The one you put a belt around yourself and it goes.
Well, I don't have one of those. I just have one where the table, what you stand on, vibrates.
Oh, I see. And you balance?
Yeah. And you balance on it. Yeah. And I was told that it just is a general circulation increase and also really improves your balance as well, right? And so I got it from my fellow Rotarian, Jack. And I said, he said, well, yeah, don't use it more than about 15 minutes a day. I said, oh, okay, sure. So I probably use it like, I don't know, 2 hours a day. I was like, well, I'm talking, not right now, because it would screw up my voice. My voice would be all blah, 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 blah. But when I'm taking in content, I'm taking in a course, and I'm standing on it. And when I'm doing my meditating in the morning, I stand when I'm doing my meditating, and then I'm standing on it as well when I'm doing my meditating.
It actually helps weight loss too, and there's been a lot of research that anytime you challenge your balance, your body says, "Oh, I need to be lighter for this. I need to lose weight so that this is easier." And I've really been interested in that. You have to be careful that you're not going to hurt yourself, but anything that requires you to balance yourself has a lot of positive benefit to it. So that's a great one. Activities for the mind. Puzzles are great. Any kind of puzzle, word puzzles, memory puzzles, anything. Board games from a study again in 2020 benefit people by keeping brain cells alive. Playing board games, it's socially wonderful. It encourages problem solving, teamwork. Often people with dementia withdraw, as we've talked about. They feel isolated. They're often older, so maybe their family or friends.
So this way include them then, yeah?
Exactly. You don't have to be great friends to play a board game. You don't have to know each other, right? You can, as long as you know sort of how the rules work. I know in Japan, lots of old guys, you could sit down and play Go with them without being able to speak the language or understand the game. They would just help you, sort of point where you should put your character, and eventually you would watch and play, and you'd start to figure it out on your own just by watching what they were doing. Wonderful activity. Puzzles, board games, read aloud. That's a great way for kids to learn. It's a great way to learn language, but also helps people with dementia, because when you're stimulating, vibration, voice, reading silently is okay, but when you read out loud, whole, tone.
I get that. That makes sense. Yeah. You know what? I did an image of when you're sitting down with older Asian fella and here's my character, where do I put it, right? And he helps you, and then that would be, you'd really have to be in a beginner's mind type of a thing. Like, I'm just no ego involved, like I don't know this game at all. I'm just like, you're going to show me, and maybe you'll make fun of me even, right? You have to be kind of vulnerable to do that, right?
But you don't have a choice. When you don't understand the language, when you don't understand the game, when there's no Google Translate in your pocket at that time.
Yes.
But you see this wonderful person who's just beaming at you, motioning you to come play.
Yeah.
And they just want to engage with you. You can't say no, but you could if you're a heartless SOB. But,
okay, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And we can all do that for someone else. We can invite someone else to do, that's got to be good for you too, right?
That is true. That's awesome.
I love the reading a book aloud. I think people need to do more of that. Volunteer, I know our little guys used to go read with the Japanese seniors in English, and then the Japanese seniors would read to them in Japanese. No one understood what was going on. They looked at the pictures, they laughed, sat in each other's laps, and had a great time. Play card games. card games are great. Sort of not popular now. When I was younger, the adults always used to go over to each other's place and play hearts or bridge, or right.
I still play. We don't do it enough, but we play canasta.
Oh yeah.
And so
Rum
and that's
and
like that's like four hands of it. So it's probably like about 4 hours of card playing, right?
wow.
So you basically have supper and do that, and then end up about 11 o'clock by the time you're done.
We should bring that back, because memory, cognition, and social communication skills, which often suffer when people get dementia or memory loss, because they're scared of making a mistake, right?
Yes, everything you've said is about being connected to others and very present in this moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ask questions, right? And this gets into what we're going to talk about now, and that's how to support people who have dementia. And I really love this one, and there's a lot of great ways here. And the whole title of it is 10 Ways to Connect. And there's your answer right there, right? In that word, all of their things on how to support a loved one with dementia is connection.
Yes.
Maintain and grow your connection. And you help them, and you'll help yourself, right?
That's beautiful.
Talk about topics you know that interest them. That's a pretty given one. This one I like. Use props. It's easier for a person to talk about things when they're having maybe some memory lapses if there's some props, physical things,
Yeah.
Right? And, I know that, boy, it wouldn't matter how deep I was in dementia. If you brought a bridle to me, that would trigger a whole bunch of stuff.
Sure.
And I could talk about that, because I would be, I could feel it, smell it, and it would trigger a whole bunch of things. So they say use props. Bring some with you, bring things from their home that you can trigger those things. And in that vein, create a memory box of pictures and their favorite things that they can keep with them. And so often people who develop dementia get fearful of forgetting who they are, or losing contact or communion with everyone. And so a memory box that they can keep with them, even something simple as a locket, or, I wear my grandfather's jewelry, helps me stay connected to him. Those kind of things are important. Talks about people who lose the ability to speak. Often when people suffer from dementia, I talked about Fleur's grandfather, who stopped speaking in English basically and only spoke in German. Some people lose the ability to speak at all. And what they say is make sure you acknowledge their facial expression. Everyone communicates, right? When I'm looking at you, even when I'm talking, you're communicating back to me. Your eyes change shape, your mouth changes shape. And they're saying it's really important that when someone can't speak, you don't just get frustrated and tune them out, that you respond to the ways they are trying to communicate. Even if it's grunts or moans or whistles or a slight facial change, acknowledge that you understand they're trying to communicate with you. That's really powerful.
Yeah, that is.
Food, that talks about how food can really help trigger people and help stimulate that memory corridors. Is there food for you that triggers memories of being young or certain people in your life?
I don't know.
In our family, we were German.
Food.
Sorry?
No, I don't think so.
I bet there is. I think most people have. You smell something, you're like, oh, that's familiar. I really like that smell, because
all right, okay. Chili.
Yeah.
I love chili. I'll make chili. When I was a bachelor, I would make a big ass pot of chili, and then I would eat from that same pot for like every meal for like a week. Probably not the healthiest choice, but when you're a bachelor, you know one thing, and you don't want to even get any plates dirty. Just eat out of the pot.
But see, just right now, your face lit up. You got so happy when you remembered the chili, right? And I was thinking about my grandmother Sweetman. Whenever you came to visit her, if you looked down, she would make scrambled egg sandwiches. It was just white bread with scrambled eggs that had a lot of butter in them and the salt and pepper. But she would talk to you and ask you stuff, and she'd make these wonderfully fluffy, soft egg sandwiches. They were
nice. Those sound lovely.
Yeah, but it was kind of a ritual, right? It was like saying, you know, just pay attention to me. You've seen me do this 1,000 times. Just relax. Grandma's got control. Everything's gonna be okay. You have a nice, yummy sandwich. Grandma's gonna sit down and listen to you. And just that food. So food can be really powerful, especially ethnic food. Often when people are new to a country, and we've seen a lot of people displaced because of war and famine and conflict. Being in a new country, a new language, and then suffering from dementia or similar conditions can be horrible. Incredibly complex. And food and ethnic food, food from home, smells from home can be really, really important for that.
Cool.
Care for a plant together. Any kind of, again, something that you can help that person interact with their environment around them, and you can do it together. Is big. Somebody's a big gardener, caring for a plant. If somebody was a car enthusiast, collect little matchbook cars. Of course, they can't collect cars anymore, but a little shelf full of really cool little matchbook cars that you collect together. Something like that would be a cool idea. Celebrate as many family occasions as possible. This is a big one, right? And if you don't have a big family, then celebrate national holidays, celebrate religious holidays, celebration and gratitude. And Michelle sent me a thing from Michael J. Fox. You know Michael J. Fox's story, right? Parkinson's. Yep. Is it Parkinson's? And he recently did an interview, and he was talking about how gratitude is the key to everything. If you can find gratitude, then you have hope, then you have resilience. That, in his life, whatever he's gone through, if he could just find gratitude for one little thing, that would grow and would help him reconnect. And I'll have the clip for next show to share.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Really good stuff. So hands-on tasks, even like folding clothes together is a big one with those people that, are important to you and suffering from these things. Sing and dance together, get up and move with them. My grandmother used to love to waltz. We used to waltz in the kitchen all the time when we came over, something that she just
nice.
And like you said, right from the beginning, be connected, man. Just connect. Do whatever it takes, but connect. That's the best thing you can do for somebody that you love that's suffering from dementia or a similar condition.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm also going to just put in a next plug for singing, because you get the benefits today, but even if you get dementia, you'll probably remember all the lyrics, even if you don't remember a damn. They'll just put you in your chair and roll you out in the hallway, and you'll sing all day, and they'll put you back in, and you go to bed. That'd be beautiful.
Yeah, music and scent are the two big things that they say can trigger memories that people feel have been lost to them. You might not remember anything, but then you hear a song and you're right there again. You know? So exactly right. Keep that music going. So all of those things, challenge your brain, stay connected, cross-train your brain, and life can be better. You can maintain that quality of life for a long time.
Brother Scott, we're getting pretty loquacious here. We're an hour and 4.
We're done. Yeah.
Okay. Is this what are we shooting for some kind of a time frame here? Or are we trying to budget it all?
Well, we try and shoot for 45 minutes, but then you and I get on a topic like this that's so important. Right.
I'm not complaining, and it was good discussion. I just was asking if we're supposed to be, if you're expecting that I'm controlling your behavior to make sure we shut off at a specific time, you're disappointed. So just touching base if we're supposed to be budgeting.
Well, that's what I have. That was my last. I mean, there's lots more, right? But we've covered the big ones, buddy.
Wrap her up then.
From my dear friend Alan Friesen, the acapellist, and myself, Scott Sweetman, thank you once again for joining us on H3. We will see you next Thursday night, same time, same place, 7 p.m. on Just TV. Please join us. Be happy, healthy, and hopeful. Take care, everyone.
Get him, Matson. See ya. I guess I have to actually hit the end broadcast.